Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Open Concept Podcast, where we are breaking down those unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. Today, what a treat. You know, storytelling for me has always been a big part of my life. I don't know if you've been listening to this podcast for a while. I tend to get deep on stories because I think that they really do start to connect with people, and I love hearing everybody else's stories. And that's really one thing that engages people with other people's lives. It's what drives connection. It drives trust. And today, Jynafer Rose joining us all the way from Orange County. And what do I say about Jynafer? I have a full bio here of you, which I'm going to let you get into in a second. But I think what you do is kind of mind blowing, because you take authors that have books. You take this written word that people put heart and soul into, and they want that to land with their audience. You make that happen. You find that audience that is going to resonate with those books, with those stories that people are putting their heart and soul into, and you get it in front of the people that need to hear it, that need to see it. I don't know how else to describe it. I'll let you describe itself, but Jynafer, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to get into this with you.
Brandon, thank you so much for having me on here. This is exciting. I've loved seeing your story as well, and over time in the mastermind group, to seeing your growth and all of that, and having something so much bigger than just the business with the podcast is it's just a great opportunity to be here and connect. The funny thing about what I do is that's like the question I always get. What is it you do again? Because it's not black and white. In all communities, even my cousins, when I see them, they're like, great, how are things in the thing that you do? And it's so soft sometimes. It's not a traditional thing. It was much easier back when I worked at an ad agency. It was like, oh, she's in advertising and marketing. But now I still am, but it is a bit more, because we're also in producing and filmmaking and connections, and there's some coaching elements in there as well. So I spent about 15 years in advertising agencies with boutique startup companies all the way to Fortune 500 companies, to helping them get through their IPOs. And so what I did there was I was on the strategy and the client liaison side. So I got to work with the strategy team, the creative team, unfortunately, but necessarily the accounting teams. And then of course the fun, shiny part is going to be the, all the creative stuff and even the production team. So seeing how campaigns were made from soup to nuts. What does that look like when you're talking to the sales team? What kind of data are they interested in? And what does that look like from a marketing perspective when you start to analyze all of that? Then you get into the creative, you're taking data and you're taking creative and you're putting that together. And that place in between is where I think I learned the most and got the most excited about, and I use the most now, because I'm looking at people's psyche. It's not just data, like what percentage or how many people converted from this to that, or what does the funnel look like and the flow through. It's what are they thinking? What are they feeling along the way? What problem are we seeking to solve? And how does this product or thing meet them there? And once they're there and we convert them into a sale, how do we turn them into an advocate? And that's exactly what we've been doing with books and stories, but it's so much deeper because it's not solving a typical problem or a business problem or a retail need. I think stories are really answering an entertainment, but also deeper down could be like a soul level, and stories of all sort, whether we're talking fiction or nonfiction. And yes.
So Archimedes Books, right, is the name of the company, and you have a variety of different authors, and ultimately, if you're an author and you have a story, they're going to approach you because they say, I have this book that I love, I'm working on it, I want to make sure that it finds the right people, I want to make sure that it lands with the right audience. How do I make that happen? And creatives, I don't want a blanket statement all creatives here, because there's magic in creative and there's magic in data and everything, but I know sort of what you said right there is there's this middle ground between creativity and data, and there's a lot of magic that happens when those two meet, those two elements meet. But when somebody comes to you and they say, I'm writing this book, what is on their mind? Are they typically thinking about distribution? Do they have any sense of how this works at all? Or are they just hoping that I'm going to write a really great book and one person is going to get the book and I'm going to get it out to their friends because they're going to be happy with it, they're going to refer the book, and then all of a sudden I'm going to become a bestseller and I'm going to become the next J.R.R. Tolkien? Like, what's typically running through their mind that you need to wrangle and make sure that they're staying on track?
That's a great question, because at that time, what's going through their mind typically is, I've got a good story. Now what? I've got what I think could be a good story. Now what? Some people want to know, do I take the story idea and do I pitch that to a publisher? Do I take a story idea and I need an agent? Does this need to be completely fleshed out? What happens if I write it and it's not what they want? What happens if nobody wants it? Is indie publishing a thing? Do people want that? Because there's so much that's changed in the past 12 years or so, with indie publishing versus vanity press versus paid publishing and getting picked up by publishers. And publishers used to pick up the whole IP, right? The whole intellectual property package. But now they can take bits and pieces. We only want the paperback. We only want the hardback. We only want foreign rights. And so that there's a lot of what we think we know, and then there's a lot of we have no idea. And so the authors are coming from a myriad of backgrounds, so they don't have insights into any of this. And so what I like to do is I ask this question first: what is the story for? Like, why are you writing it? If you're writing a story because this is your number one heart story, that's going to be very different of, I want to be a storyteller, have multiple stories, this is the first of them, and I want to make an enterprise or business of this. I want to write on the side, or this is my memoir that I have to get out, because I would approach the execution of those also very different.
I had a comment, my sister, she's written a number of books, but has never published anything. And she just loves writing, and she calls herself an author, and I love that. And she's an incredible writer, but she gets something on her heart and she pumps it out and she does that, and she has a few people read it and she loves it, and she's wondering though, like, why she's not getting recognized. And part of the thing is that there's maybe a part, and I don't know how correct this is, but for people to really start falling in love with what it is that you love, part of that means that you're going to have to build something to create something that the audience is going to love first. Right. So I look back at, Taylor Swift, for example, right? She's the biggest well-known female artist on the planet, arguably. And her early writing was stuff that was starting to get her name out there. It wasn't necessarily, and she's openly said, it wasn't necessarily stuff that I was excited to write about. Maybe at the time I was, but it was really her feedback started to come from the audience about what they wanted to see. And the directors that she was working with and the distribution team that she was working with, were sort of guiding, her in this direction to say, this is really what the people want. So build this first. And then you start seeing later in her later music is that she's developed an entirely different tone all on her own. And some might say like that's with maturity, but also she has this huge fan base. So whatever she does, people are gonna follow that. So she now has this leverage of attention that allows her to produce really whatever she wants. And she knows people are going to see it and people are going to start to listen. But without generating that audience first and having them fall in love with you first, you don't really have that kind of freedom if you want to grow at scale. And I think a lot of authors probably have that same barrier where they're writing really great books, but maybe they love it. They're writing it because they love it, but they're not necessarily writing it because their audience is going to fall in love with it. And it kind of dies on the shelf. Is there truth to that?
There's absolute truth to that. There's right.
Real quick before we get back to the show, if you have heard anything on this podcast that has resonated with you, or if it's helped you in any way, appreciate more than anything in the world if you could go hit that subscribe button or leave us a review. It helps us tremendously. I want to go back to being able to continue to serve and do more and more and help out and get bigger and bigger guests on, better and better. The only way that I can do that is with your help. I'm so honored to be here. Let's get back to the show. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.
Writing the story for you because it's a story you wanted, and then there's writing for the audience. Right? Who's the audience? If you're the audience and this is what you wanted to write, by all means, there's nothing wrong with that. You could still be considered an author. If you've written it, you're a writer, you're an author, right? But people want a certain level of familiarity, right? So we call that writing to market. What does the market want? And that doesn't mean in a pandering sense, like fantasy or romance fantasy right now is like a super hot genre, but we're not saying everybody needs to be writing that in order to write to market. There are several big genres right now, but there are several things that sort of stand the test of time or that are expected within a category, within a genre. We can like genres overall, and then you can drill down and go category, because you can talk about fantasy and we could think Tolkien. We could think Lewis. We could think Wheel of Time. But also that does cover within fantasy a lot of this lit RPG progression kind of stuff. We're talking fiction here. Vampire hunting, that's urban fantasy, paranormal, all of that's also fantasy. So those are the categories within the genre. They all have certain expectations. 80% of the story should feel like what they expect. And then that 20% is where you really get in there and can do the thing that you do so well as a creative. And the market will resonate with that. And to your point, once you've got your own voice, right? Because it takes time to develop your voice as a creative, whether that's like your look as an artist, your sound as a musician, or just your tone as a writer. You got to get in a bunch of iterations as you find what works. And then you have an audience who also resonates with that. And that will grow as you mature in your craft. And then you can do more so of what fits your voice. I think for some reason in the author space, there's this notion of like, if you build it, they will come. But I can't think of another space where that is true. Like, oh, I built a plumbing business. Now everyone's going to call me. No.
Exactly. And I mean, it really comes down to marketing, right? And that can be in a many different directions, right? Whether that's going to be your tactical guerrilla marketing, and that might be, you're literally, if you have a book, you're knocking on the doors trying to sell books, or you have a pop-up sale, or you're selling, there's digital, right? You can sell on TikTok. You can just like get mass distribution through so many different channels, but people need to know about it the same way that, a plumbing company, electrical company, just because you start a business and you get a couple of business cards printed and you get a hat and a t-shirt, all of a sudden you think the phone's going to start ringing. You're so wrong. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a generally a nonfiction reader. I haven't read a lot of fiction in a long time. I think the last fiction book I reread was The Alchemist. Awesome book. Love that book. I'll go back to it every once in a while. But even the nonfiction books that I fall in love with, that I reread again, there's an element of storytelling to it, and it's not dry. Right? These nonfiction books, it's generally the author is talking about past experiences, people that they've worked with, whatever, but they have these compelling stories that are really drawn in there to get their point across. And those are the types of books that I fall in love with. And those are the books that I remember. And the lessons that are being taught within those stories is how I remember those lessons. It's not, is black and white of, hey, step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this because of, these reasons. It's literally, this happened here. This is a story. Don't do this. Or there's something that's really really starting to pull on my heart, and there's a lesson behind that. And that's really what that sinks in. Now, there's an art to writing stories. There's an art to connecting. I've heard, there's I don't know if it's the seven. I'm totally going to butcher this, by the way. But there's sort of like the 7-step, like the story arc, right? Like there's the main character, and then they grow, and then they go through something difficult, and then they become, the hero in that story, and then they're sort of undeserving, and then they go through this big, big adventure or big path and then they become, the hero again at the end that they never thought that they would become. And that's sort of like that big arc, the Hollywood arc. I don't know what you would call it. You would
Hero's journey.
The hero's journey. And is that the absolute way of writing a story? Or like, what makes a really powerful story?
I'm going to nerd out on you for a little bit because
nerd out on me. I need to know.
Yeah, this is like so true. I live in this world, very business and very fiction and nonfiction, right? Reading all the nonfiction and then reading these really fantastic fun fiction. And because of just my background and everything, there's the contemporary stuff that's like a snack. I like to read those books. They're fast and easy to digest, like, some semi-contemporary thrillers. I homeschool our children, and we have a literature-based education. Why? Because kids and everybody learn through storytelling best, not facts and figures. It's kind of when you hear it's not the information is free. It's the implementation. And where do we see the implementation most? In stories. So it's not enough to know just the facts of like the order of the presidents of the United States. Like what happened? What was going on at the time? What are the human elements? I also read a ton of classic. I'm reading the Odyssey right now. So we're talking like thousands of year old stories. Why do they have these? This just wasn't an adventure tale. They would recite this by heart to help form the culture at the time in ancient Greek world, right? In this antiquity. It wasn't just about who did what. It was about the character that it was building and the lessons to be learned. That's how we learn best. It's head, heart, hand. The facts, what is the heart of the story? Humans, evolved. We came up from telling stories around the fire. It was community. It was learning from each other. It was sharing these tales. And there's a reason why this sort of hero's journey, this arc, story arc, there's like the comedy and there's like the tragedy, right? So if you got someone up, then they fall. We want to see them come up. But if they don't come back up, then we have this tragedy. There's a lesson to be learned there as well. But I think somewhere in us, we all have this need and yearning for hope. So when we hear or read a story where maybe someone learned and they had to fall and they come back up, that's the proper hero's journey, then we want to be able to imagine ourselves on that same ride, that there's hope for us to get there too, no matter where we are on our own journey. And we want to identify with that. And I think that's a key element of good storytelling is, and this goes back to the first part, it's not about you. It's about the other person on the other side. Can they relate? Can they understand? Can they feel what you're feeling? When you could do that, this is what my husband says when he's writing. He's like, I'm not telling stories. I'm creating an emotional roller coaster for people to go on. And at the end, they're so amped up and so into it, they're bought in. And they're now part of something bigger than themselves. And that also applies to nonfiction. We can look at some of the best nonfiction people now. What happens after we read their book? I want to watch their videos. I want to check out their podcast. Do they have a community? I'm going to follow them on socials. We're looking for a connection, and good stories, fiction or nonfiction, all bring about human connection.
That must translate huge into the way that you also market these books.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like you need to give your audience a reason to fall in love with these authors and fall in love with the books before they ever purchase them. Right. The same way that if, we're building houses for people, we need to, I love what you said there is you need to give the audience hope, right? They're following the hero on this journey, and there needs to be some sort of hope there. And when it comes to marketing, right, there's hope that their problem is going to be solved based on what it is that you have to offer, right? Whether it's buying a new pair of jeans that are going to make your ass look great, or it's renovating a home that is going to allow family and friends to come over and for you to feel great about your space, or it's a book that is going to get read, right?
Yeah.
And how does that art of storytelling translate into marketing? You have a marketing background, distribution background. You're kind of right in the middle of that creative space and like the science of creativity and data. You're right in that middle point. How does that storytelling element translate into how you actually get product in front of people?
What we do is we look at what the audience has resonated with already. So we don't have to start from zero. We start from what has worked. What is it that they already love about the genre, starting with that 80%, and then making a commitment to meeting that need. And that's kind of an emotional need. People gravitate to certain stories based on their own intrinsic needs. And so that's why through time there have been different things that are more popular, even in film, right? Like all the zombie movies, all the vampire movies, all the dystopian stuff. It's a reaction, all the horror stuff. It's a reaction to just like the vibe, the mood, the energy, the need, emotional need of culture at the time. And so that can go on a micro level with what people are looking for in these books. Often it's escape. So if we can mirror the type of escape that these people will get in the ads or in our marketing copy or any of that, in the brand, depending on the author. And then from there, we do body of evidence. What is it that other readers have said? What is it that other people who've enjoyed this? All we're trying to do is get them to the next step. A cold ad isn't going to be the conversion ad. So we're just going to get them, have I piqued your interest enough based on where your needs are or that feeling that you might have? Can I get you to the next step? And at that next step, continue that journey and that promise and give them a taste of what that could look like. Say if it's like, say, for example, it's a sales landing page, something as simple as that. Okay, how does that reflect to them what they might start to experience? And what is the promise that's not from our words, but from other readers, right? Testimonials, if you would, in another business space, and or even a nonfiction, the testimonials of, I think this is going to solve my problem. This is the emotional outcome. Freedom, having my time back, family, sanity, whatever it is. And then, yes, the other people would say, I too have felt these things. I too have been where you are. And here I am on the other side. That's that promise of hope and delivery. And then from there, and because we're in the book space, it's we always look at like, what's the barrier to entry, right? A book for like $10 to $30 is going to be different from like investing tens of thousands for a remodel, but the structure is the same.
Mm. Writer's block. Is that a real thing? Is that
I
a
don't
myth?
think so.
Is that okay? All right. So because I know a lot of people, they get into this situation. I am one of them, right? You start writing a book, you start writing something, and you're very driven for a couple of days, and then you lose momentum. You've kind of like got all your thoughts down where they are, and you keep thinking in the back of your mind, all right, I'm going to get back to that someday. I've started it. I'm going to put it on the back burner because I'm not making a priority. The ideas have stopped flowing. How important is it to continue just writing, like the repetitions, right? If you're trying to get really great at basketball and you don't want to feel like you want to get out and practice that day, so you get out and you practice anyways because you know that no matter what, like you want to get better at making those three shots. Is writing the same way? Like if you're not feeling like writing, but you want to be diligent with writing, is it mandatory that you wake up and you write anyways, and you block that out because it's like anything else, you're just getting it out, you're getting these ideas out of the way? Or is it you need to really be in that great creative state of mind to write something awesome?
This I say with like the asterisk. I am not the writer, but having been in this space for so long and living with a prolific writer, and he says this every time. It's fake. It's a story we tell ourselves to not have to do the work. It's a story I tell myself when I'm like, I'm not in it for the gym today. Like, I don't have the strength or the energy or what have you. Just get in there, right? You got to flow. A couple of the resources that I really love for this, and I've heard them say, is Seth Godin talks about having to get the words on the page. You get it out anyway. Writer's block is just resistance, and that comes from Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art and the resistance, right?
Two great authors, by the way.
Right. You have to it's like you've named the demon, you've named and identified that demon, so you're now able to like say, not today, Satan, to it. So what we think of as writer's block sometimes is like we just don't feel like it, or we're not happy with whatever that is. That's all ego. Get the words on the page. No one says they have to be good. The words are there. So get the icky words, get the badly written stuff out. Like you have to get it out of the funnel. You have to get it, exercise those creative muscles. And the other one that I really enjoy is Stephen King and his On Writing, I think it is Give It to the Boys in the Basement. It's because you're thinking about the part that you already did. So now you have to wonder, okay, what's next? Think about that before you go to bed, and you wake up and your subconscious has kind of worked that out a bit. And in that early morning hours, which is why my husband does work at 5 a.m. to start writing, and I think Dan Martell says, many people will say the same thing. At these early hours, your brain wave state is kind of in a different space. So you're not doing what I used to do, is like force the words out. You're actually just opening up and letting them flow from that part of your brain that's already worked it out. And it doesn't have to be good. It just needs to get done.
I'm very much I prefer early mornings over anything, right? That's when I'm the most creative. It's when I'm the most connected to the universe. It's when great ideas come after, 7 p.m. It's tough for me to do anything. Like my mind is definitely not there. So I know throughout my day where I'm the most creative. I have the most clarity. The difficulty is like you're very clear at that point. For me, I'm very clear in my mind. But if I was to jump on a microphone that early in the morning, I have all of this clarity in my mind, but I haven't quite connected the brain and the mind and all of those thoughts to the ability to actually vocalize it, so it would come out kind of dirty and messy. So I found it like it's a very fine space to live in your head, to get these ideas, but then also finding that right vehicle. Maybe that would be a better idea to write, but certainly like the ability for me to start articulating my clear thoughts that early in the morning has been a tough thing for me to find, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you can get the ideas. Maybe you don't have the full articulation, but that's draft one. Like, that's just draft one. Get the ideas on the page, and then you could go back. There's no editing while writing. It's a different flow state. It's a different part of your brain. So you're just getting concepts, ideas, moments, scenes, rough dialogue, whatever it is, get that going. And then afterwards, you can go back and you have a sense of what you were trying to do. And if you have a different approach to it, you can get into the fine tuning. You can like work and massage out and chew out on one of the, I would like to say this, I feel like this area could be more poetic. I think this needs to be more hard hitting. You have a better sense of the overall flow and structure of the book. One thing that we always say is like every story is a mystery at its core. Even nonfiction is a mystery, because we're wondering, how is this going to happen? And where is this person going to end up precisely? And what's going on with them now? Those are all mystery elements. And so you can construct your story in that way, and can't be afraid to kill your darlings. Like, this might be a great fun lesson, but does it work with the overall mystery we're solving here? And maybe that is a great nugget for another book or another time.
Lovely. Can you jump into Kill Your Darlings a little bit? Because I think that there's a lesson there that can be learned not just from storytelling, but in business in general and in life. Can you get into what that means and what you mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. Especially with creatives, I do love them. There could be something they've invested time, attention, talent, or heart into creating, and they get so precious about that thing, that moment, that book, that character, whatever, that scene. They don't see that that element that they hold so dear is their darling, and they don't want to get rid of it, but that darling may very well be a hindrance or be marring what could be an otherwise great product. And so people get very precious about that. In business, that could be a sunk cost, or it could be an idea that we get attached to, this thing we feel that must be done. And I think we just, as humans, sometimes we kind of like overcomplicate some of the stuff. I don't know, creators, founders, whatever it is. And in the film world, especially, it has been amazing for us to meet with some partners and some producers. And we're like, we're not precious. We're not precious with the creative. And they're like, well, would you be open to this? We're like, listen, if it's a good story and it's all about the story, it's pretty much on the table. Now, if we're shoving other things in there and it's not about the story, that's a different conversation. And so I think that has given us a lot more opportunity and made us a lot more nimble to pivot and adjust in the markets with our business as like from a business standpoint and in stories.
And to your point, that can translate into business as well, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to lose focus. We have ideas, right? That we get these wonderful creative ideas, these things that we want to pursue, these passions, and something looks good, and we hear about something, we want to go down this path, and we think like this might help out the business a little bit if we test this out. This might help out the business if we test this out. And then you end up spending so much time and so much focus on that, and it becomes so near and dear to your heart. It's tough to see the big picture that actually, in fact, this isn't really serving the longer term vision. It served a moment, maybe it served a creative outlet. It's probably not going to be something that's going to serve the next year, the next 5 years, the next 20 years. And that may not be the best thing that you should be focusing on. But it's very difficult to kill that idea, right? I have behind me somewhere, I have a television script that I wrote. And I reached out to somebody. I was like, I have this idea. I want to write this television show. And I put together a book. I hired somebody online to help me with a pitch deck. Got it all fancy. I got it printed off. I got it laminated, and I started going to different production companies and saying, hey, like this would be a really neat show. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And started getting a lot of no's. And I kept hearing, well, you need to knock on 100 doors, and you're probably going to get 99 no's, maybe 100, but like that 101th door that gets slammed in your face, that next one is going to pop up, and that's going to be the game changer. And that was a mindset that I kept going down, and there's truth to that. But I had to step back and say, look, this isn't really getting the traction that I was hoping. Is this going to be pivotal to what it is that I'm really trying to do here? Is it going to be a portion of that? And that was one thing that I had to kill. But it's not quite dead, because it's on my back shelf here somewhere, and like somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be able to make this a priority at some point. But that was really difficult for me to give up this idea, this thing that I had been working with on evenings and weekends, and putting my heart and soul into, and felt that because I loved it, somebody else was going to love it too. Maybe I just didn't have the bandwidth. Maybe I didn't get to that 101 door and find that person that was going to fall in love with it too. But that was something that became a bit of a distraction, and I didn't want it to. I didn't want to cause any harm in what it is that I'm currently trying to build here.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
You've mentioned a couple times about putting your heart and soul, or people putting their heart and soul into a project like this, a book or a script. What aspects do you think it means to put your heart and soul into it that you're not putting your heart and soul into the other areas of your business?
Well, because
why do you think it's different?
when you start these things, this is the whole like woman in the red dress scenario, right? It's like, I've heard Hormozy talk about this, Chris Williamson talk about it, and it's this idea that like, are you actually in love with the girl in the red dress, or is she just hot and hard to get, right? And it was the distraction, right? It comes from the Matrix, right? The movie The Matrix. Like top, stories, like one of the really top movie, awesome movie. But there's this scene where they're walking down the road, and Neo, there's this woman in the red dress that's walking by, and he catches Neo's eyes, the main character. And because he does that, he doesn't see these agents that are there that are ready to kill him. And he got distracted. And in fact, that woman in the red dress wasn't real. It was just a distraction. It was just a scene dropped in the Matrix there. So when I say like heart and soul into it, right? You find when you start off on these early ventures and new ideas, you find that flow state that you're talking about, right? It's this relief of pressure. It's a great creative outlet. You get excited about it, right? Because you get excited about the opportunity, about the hope that you're talking about. Right? You go down this avenue. There's hope that something is going to change. There's hope that there's a feeling that's going to change, or the hope that the future is going to be brighter than it is right now. So you pursue this, and in that moment, that feels really good. And so in that moment, you're putting your heart and soul into it where it maybe needs to be. It just might be for a time, right? And just like people come into your life, right? People come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? And just like ideas, just like creative pursuits, just like businesses that you may start, those might come into your lifetime for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that reason might be because it's trying to show you something that you need to see. Maybe it's simply because you need a reprieve from something else, or you want a little change. So in that case, I felt that in that moment, that was where I was putting my heart and soul into. And it was a brief moment, but it felt really good to like be on this creative pursuit of something new again, right? You don't know what you don't know. There's zero downside because you're just into it. And so the only thing that you have on the other side of that is hope and opportunity. And so that feeds the soul, right? That feeds your heart for a time frame. But I just found I did go back and I analyzed, should I be spending my time doing this? What does this look like if this gets off the ground? Cool. What are the chances of that? Like, this is where the data was coming in. Like, all right, maybe the chances are pretty little. And then I had to go back and ask myself, like, is this actually something that the market would want? Or is this something that I'm just doing for myself? Am I doing it for me, or am I doing it for the market? And I looked at it, and this was when, social media was really starting to take off, right? Instagram was purchased by Meta, and there was a lot of online storytelling that was coming around. And I just put it on the back shelf. And there was a part of me that was like, that still thinks that maybe at some point I'm going to pick it up one day.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I think that people don't realize how much they need to be creative and being creators instead of just consumers. And that is something that probably lights a lot of people up, why they feel they've put their heart and soul into it, because it's something that originated from within. It's not data, it's not in the same tangible space in the world. So it really has to come from within your creativity. And even the stories, the nonfiction stuff, there's a gal I'm friends with. She has her book coming out, and her background was infertility and IVF. It really, as a woman, does not get any more personal and deep than that sometimes. And so I'm excited for where her story is going to go, her book, but she has already been telling her story. And that's kind of where being able to do that on social and building a platform and connecting with people really resonates. And so when I tell authors, like, that's great, you're going to create the story, but people want to get stories from those they know, like, and trust. And they could, are you my people? Another Seth Godin thing I always refer to. People like us do things like this. People like us read stories like this. People like us create businesses in this way. And so social is a way that allows sort of free, it's free in financial cost, but it's not free in of yourself, bits of yourself. And that could be done in a variety of ways, because we're not saying put everything out there. Actually, we're saying please don't put everything out there. But yeah, that's where I think more folks can get into creating and developing and not just consuming, and that would really make them feel alive.
When you say, maybe you shouldn't put everything out there, why do you say that? Because there's a lot of people that, and I agree with you, but there's a lot of people that would say, just put everything out there. And just whatever's on your heart, just say it, because like you need to get that out there, and that's going to be the most authentic version of yourself. But to me, I feel like you may not be that person, you may not be portraying that person that you necessarily want to be, or you're letting some emotions get the better of you that aren't really defining who you are. They just happen to be what you're feeling in that moment. And that's, I don't know if that's necessarily the best play either, because people do start to pay attention, especially on social media. They start to pay attention about who you are, who you're associating with. Are you a relatively stable person? Do you make decisions, through clarity and through thoughts and through best practices and measures, or are you just like wildly emotional? Who are you? And I think if you're jumping around all over the place, people have a tough time really understanding who it is that you are and what they should expect.
I like how you said relatively stable.
Relatively stable. I know. Because
Relatively
I don't know if it's
stable.
like super, super stable, but
How many of us are truly stable?
Yeah.
There's what is your social media for? Goes like, why are you writing this book? What's your social media for? Is it just for your personal space and putting it out there? Great, do whatever you want. I really could not care less, right? If I'm not interested in it, I just don't have to subscribe to your content. But if you're doing this for a business purpose, which is if it's your personal brand, whatever it is you're selling, whatever it is you're connected to in business, if you're developing a personal brand, then it is still curated. You're still thoughtful because you're delivering a specific message. It's not deceitful. You are authentic, but it doesn't replace real human interactions in your personal life. And, and this is one thing for us that's so important to what we do. We have read that 1 out of 3 people doesn't have anyone to talk to. It's a lonely world. It's so lonely. That's why we want to be seen and connected to in community and have something that resonates with us. And we say, yes, me too, right? And that happens in books. I like books like this, and now I want to be in a community that has the similar values, and I want to talk about it. I wish people would all have someone to talk to, all have someone near and dear that they can lay it all out there. But I would say if you're building a personal brand, that's not the space for it, because it's a reflection, not just like you personally, but your persona professionally. And not lying, you're just choosing, like a resume, what you would put out there as it's applicable to your space.
I mean, it's the same reason why women put on makeup, and we all go to the gym, and we want to look good, we want to feel good. It's why we do push-ups before we go down to the beach to maybe get a bit of a pump on. And we do want people to not only resonate with the better version of ourselves to some degree, but also we know that somewhere down there, there really is a version of ourselves that we really do want to strive to become, a version of ourselves that we are becoming. And in that process, it's tough to go back and say, I don't know necessarily where I'm going with this thought. I'm trying to articulate it in a way that's not going to offend a huge amount of people. But you if you're becoming a person that you want to become, right? If you're starting on this diet because you really want to better yourself, you don't want to go back and start eating a bunch of shitty food, right? You don't want to lose progress. And the reality is in shifting identity, right? Just like with these characters that are in books, they have to become that hero, even though that hero may always have been inside of them the whole time, and they've had this courage inside of them the whole time. They probably needed some sort of villain, some sort of big catastrophe in their life that was going to help bring that out of them and get them past this line of old identity to new identity. And once you become that new version of yourself, or you're trending towards this new identity of who it is that you're becoming, then there's not a lot of room for old habits to slip back in. There's not a lot of room for old ways of talking to yourself to slip back in, because that becomes a slippery slope. And those negative thoughts, those negative habits, they can compound so much faster than the positive habits and all of the work that you've been putting into who it is that you're becoming. Ed Milet did a great podcast not too long ago, and I'm halfway through his book, The Power of One More. And I love the way that Ed tells stories. He's a very powerful storyteller, great speaker. And his understanding of it is for positive things to happen, you need to be looking out 6 months, a year, right? The habits that you are instilling today, the things that you are doing today, you are probably not going to see those positive effects or like big change effects for 6 months, a year, 18 months, if you stay on track and you're looking at that and you're doing it diligently. Whether you're writing a book and you're getting up every day and you're starting to write, but as soon as you make that decision to stop writing, or you make that decision to not make as many cold calls as you had agreed with yourself to start making, you're going to start seeing the negative effects of that much faster. If you start eating cake every night, like, you might not jump on the scale the next day and see everything change, but if you eat cake every night for 90 days, you're going to be in a really tough spot. And the seeds that you plant right now are really going to define what your future looks like. And if it's going to be positive things, that just takes a lot more effort to start seeing some of those positive results than the negative results that you're going to see if you're jumping into poor habits.
This episode is sponsored by New Vision Projects, and everybody has heard the horror stories that happen. They have a friend of a friend or a neighbor that's been renovating for years on end, or they've been building a home and it just hasn't gone the way that it needed to go. Budgets are blown through the roof, timelines, forget about them. New Vision Projects has an incredibly strong track record for over 15 years of working with customers, serving them at the highest level. If you are considering building or renovating, check them out on Instagram at New Vision Projects or at newvisionprojects.com. Building the homes you want with the confidence you need. New Vision has you covered. Let them show you why they're different. Back to the show.
Absolutely. A few things that you said there specifically stuck out to me. And one was like, the person you're becoming is kind of already in you. It reminds me of what Michelangelo said about David. Like, David was already in the marble, in this slab of Carrara marble. It was Michelangelo, the artist, who would strip away the parts that were not David. And then once he got there, how he has stood the test of time, 17 feet tall there in Florence. So in a way, that's what we're doing. We're stripping away the parts that no longer serve us onto who we're becoming. The other thing that really stood out was when you talked about like the hero's journey. Like, we're all on our own hero's journey. That part where things can no longer be the same is called the point of no return. That's the point in a story, a movie, a book, where nothing could be the same. For Harry Potter, that's the moment Harry Potter finds out it's Hagrid's famous line, "You're a wizard, Harry." After that, things can never go back to the way they were for Harry and the Dursleys. Everything changes from that moment. And so we have those points in our lives. But in order for the hero to really reach their true capacity and have those catharsis changing moments, those transformative moments, the villain has to match where they are. a hero can only be as good as what they're overcoming. And so in our space, there's this lot of talk about, oh, we love villains. It's, or, we like to villainize heroes sometimes, even in real world too. But I think there's something beautiful in that for all of us in our growth in any sense, if that's the business, if that's us personally, if that's a fiction story we're reading or writing or watching, is that the potential of the hero is really counter to the darkness or the depth of that villain. And so I like to remind myself of that when we're encountering those hard seasons, like I'm only becoming better because of this. And it's stripping away the parts that are no longer going to serve me on the journey that I'm projected toward.
One of my all-time childhood heroes, and still a hero to this day, and I dig a lot of philosophy from, is Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, he was famous. I'm a martial artist, and I really got into martial arts because of Bruce Lee and his old movies and seeing him do all these cool things. But really, like the movies for Bruce Lee was the vehicle that was going to get his story and his philosophy to the world as fast as possible. So yes, he was great at theatricizing martial arts. I don't know if that's a word, but really like bringing that to mainstream media, right? Bringing martial arts to the world. But it was really a vehicle for him to get his overarching message, right? He was a philosopher. I have his book back here, one of his books, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And Jeet Kune Do was his form of martial art that he developed through traveling around the world, identifying, training in different martial arts, whether it was jujitsu, boxing, wrestling, Shotokan karate, whatever that is, taekwondo, and taking what was essentially useless and would not work in a street fight and stripping away everything that wasn't going to work, and essentially developed his own martial art that was going to be useful. And his whole philosophy there is strip away what is useless and only utilize what is now going to be useful. And he had a great quote on peace as well, which represents similar to the Michelangelo comment that you made. And there was he was being interviewed, and he said, "How do you find peace?" He said, "Well, you don't find peace. You strip away the things that you decide you're going to put energy towards, and you strip away the things that you decide that you're not going to put energy towards, and whatever's left is where you find peace. And you keep stripping away the things that no longer serve you, and you strip away the things that are no longer going to hold you back, or that strip away the things that are going to hold you back. And what's left is that ultimate version of yourself. And that is where you find peace. Strip away the lies. Right? That's easier to do rather than white knuckle your way through with all of these like really incredible habits. And you can have this 3-hour morning routine, and you can do all these wonderful things. But at the end of the day, right, if you still have all of those bad habits on top of all those good things, it is going to be an absolute uphill battle, just like mountain to get through, to get to the other side. It's much easier to say, hey, this hero is already inside of me. I just need to remove the parts of my life, remove the people out of my life, remove the thoughts out of my life that no longer serve me, and I'll be left with a much better version of myself. And that's a much easier way of going about it.
And that goes back to kill your darlings, right? Like
Kill
these
your darlings.
things that we thought were part of our identity. Part of my past identity some years ago was I was this fun party girl in college in the early years of my 20s. But I realized those vices were no longer serving the me I wanted to become. What's the point of spending these calories, as we call liquid calories, right? Late nights, dehydration, and then trying to like work out and eat well and study and do all this stuff. Those things don't go together. So letting go, killing the darling of that personality and embracing boring Jynafer for a while was just great. I don't care if it was boring to everyone else. I had that peace, and that peace has allowed, it's been 14 years, so it's not like it was yesterday, but it's allowed for other opportunities of growth, relationships, to peacefully let those go and love people from a distance because they're no longer serving you on this journey. Someone told us about that, and that was like, you're not having to make this big thing. You're just walking in different directions. I'm not going to begrudge them for the way that they need to go on their path, and nor am I going to be sad that they're not going with me on my path. We're all headed where we need to go right now. Then I guess this is like the episode of quoting a million books, but one that we love is the 4 agreements, and that's take nothing personal and always do your best. Your best looks different today than it will tomorrow, than it will a month from now. And it doesn't mean a month from now it's going to be better. It's just, where's your best with where you are right now? And if you have performed or have done your best, showed up on social as your best, did your work your best, written your best, whatever that looks like, you can have that peace because I've stripped away anything else that wasn't my best for that day, and I can have absolute peace of mind that I delivered to my utmost.
Love that. Jynafer, where can people find you if they want to know more about what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me on Instagram at Jynafer_Rose, but Jynafer is spelled Jynafer.
Let me ask you one more question. What is one common thing that all best writers that you work with have in common? What is, if you're looking at all the people that you're working with, the ones that are the most successful, the ones that sell the most books, is it because they have the best stories? Do they have the best writing routine? Is it because they're the most themselves? Is it because they have the best marketing plan and distribution plan? Is there anything that really highlights the commonality of the most successful writers?
So far, of the writers I've seen, and I've seen people who've sold millions of dollars worth of books in the indie space, and I could see it again in the traditional space and in the nonfiction. It's who knows their audience and they're serving who they're writing for, because they've created something that resonates with a specific person or group of persons, and then they from there can build a sort of following or community, a place where people want to belong.
Amazing. And I think that goes a long way with business as well, right? Really understanding who it is, who that person is that you are serving, who it is that you're getting your business in front of when you're developing your marketing material, honing in on who is going to value what it is the most that you have to offer, and getting very, very clear, whether you call it an ideal candidate profile, whether it's your target audience, same nuances. 100% agree. Super powerful. Jynafer, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was awesome chatting with you.
Great. Thank you. And I have to ask, what's your martial arts background?
Yes, great. So I am glad you asked. Do you have another hour on the microphone?
Okay, how about a 5-minute version?
Great. Well, so I started out early on as a kid in karate, and then I got into traditional boxing. And so that was I was with a boxing gym for a while, and that was where I what I got into. And then the gym that I was training at, it ended up shutting down, and I was lost for a little bit. This was in my 20s, and then I found a mixed martial arts gym that near where I was, and I decided I would go and check that out. And that was where I started getting into jiu-jitsu and MMA. And the owner of the gym that I had signed up with and I was engaging with, we connected because he was teaching what he had, that was the Creative Fighters Guild, and he was teaching Jeet Kune Do. Like, everything that he was learning or implementing was a lot of philosophy, and it was all elements from Jeet Kune Do. So it was a lot of hand trapping, a lot of just like thinking under pressure. And there was a huge amount of that came in, that I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. Still train jiu-jitsu to this day, but yeah, boxing, kickboxing, grappling, wrestling, just love it all, because I think with MMA and with martial arts, you learn so much. You learn so much about yourself. When I walked onto the mat the first time to my first jujitsu class, I walked in there. I was like, I'm a boxer. I'm pretty strong. I know the thing. And immediately I was humbled, right? I was choked out. I was arm barred. I had no idea. It was very clear that I had no idea what I was doing. And, second class was like, all right, I just got to be like faster, stronger, because I don't want that to happen again. So I went in there with that kind of energy. And it was about the third or fourth time I went, I was like, you know what? I need to go about this a little differently. I'm just going to go in as if I know absolutely nothing. And hey, I am here. I am just a beginner, and start asking a lot of questions. How do you do that? What's going on? What am I doing? I seem to be out of breath all the time, and you don't. What am I doing wrong? And I take that into that white belt mentality. I take that into a lot of areas of that I'm pursuing now that I'm new into the space. I can have confidence that I'm there for a reason because of all of the experience that I have behind me. But I know very quickly that if I am trying something new, that it's okay to be new and it's okay to ask the questions. And I'll often ask, can you just explain this to me like I'm a fourth grader? Like, I know absolutely nothing. Please bear with me, like spend some extra time with me, because I just don't understand. I've never done it before. And so just being able to be open and honest. And the other thing that martial arts has brought is just this level of discipline that you can't find anywhere else. You're showing up. It means, like, I love team sports. I played team sports for, all my life. I coach my daughter's soccer team, and it's great. Love team sports. I think that there's a lot for that. But when it's just you in there and all you're relying on is yourself, and it's one-on-one combat, and you have to learn a lot about yourself very, very quickly. And you have to understand that you're going to fall to the level of your training. You're not going to rise to the level of your expectations. And that has stuck with me for a long time. And that carries me into a lot of what I do, right? I know that I have to be diligent with our leadership training. I have to be diligent with understanding, like, every single client that we work with is an opportunity to get better and better and better and serve at a higher level. And every time, we complete a project, we'll review that. We'll do a deep dive. What went well? What didn't do well? Who performed well? Because it's all data and it's all reps. And we've been doing that for 16 years. And that's a mindset that I carry with me, and a discipline habit that I attribute to martial arts in a huge way.
I absolutely agree. Our two children are in sport karate, and my husband has like a semi martial arts background. He's done some jujitsu and boxing. So I did the Shotokan and sport karate for about 3 years, which all of everything, what you're saying, I could not yes, I kind of have this theory of I don't think I'm going to go into a business relationship or practice with someone who's never been punched in the face, because there's a certain resilience. Everyone's got to get a plan until they're choked out, until they get hit in the head, like that. And so I think seeing how people bounce back, but the only way to get better is discipline, and there's no fudging what you do or don't know, because it's on the mats. It's very, very evident. And then this summer, as a family, we're going to take some boxing lessons together. And I think that's why. Thank you for sharing that about what you've done. I always like to hear people's stories.
Good. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you to get into this for sure.
Great.
Keep me up to date on how the journey goes.
Yeah, I will. I'll message you.
I love it. All right, Jynafer, thank you so much for being here. And for all our listeners that are out there and still with us, as always, here rooting for you to win. Until next time, have a great day. Stay blessed. Rock and roll. See ya.